Welcome to the second Sunday of Lent. The reading I'd like to use for our reflection today is the first reading from the book of Genesis, and it tells the famous story of Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son and how this foreshadows God's gift of his son to our world. And so this reading from Genesis begins, God put Abraham to the test. Abraham, Abraham, he called. Here I am, he replied. Take your son, God said, your only child, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. There you shall offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain I will point out to you. When they arrived at the place that God had pointed out to him, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood. Then he stretched out his hand and seized the knife to kill his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Abraham said, I am here. He replied, do not raise your hand against the boy. Do not harm him, for now I know you fear God. You have not refused me your son, your only son. Then, looking up, Abraham saw a ram caught by its horns in a bush. Abraham took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering in place of his son. The angel of the Lord called Abraham a second time from heaven. I swear by my own self, it is the Lord who speaks. Because you have done this, because you have not refused me your son, your only son, I will shower blessings on you. I will make your descendants as many as the stars of heaven and the grains of sand on the seashore. The word of the Lord. So Abraham existed, his place in history is at least 4,000 years ago. And when he set out from his hometown, the city of Ur, 4,000 years ago, and began to wander with his flock and caravan, relatives, servants, flocks, he was answering a call from this same God who calls him, leave your own country and go to a place which I will show you. This city of Ur, by the way, is where Pope Francis will be visiting next week on his tour to Iraq, which is the modern day name for the Mesopotamia, the place where all these biblical things occurred. And so many centuries ago, in very primitive times, Abraham sensed a call from God, leave your own home and go to a place that I will show you. But the God that he sensed calling him was not one of the primitive gods of his old region. They were often living in designated groves and grottos and were placated by people who visited them on site, would return time and again to that one spot. But this God who was calling Abraham was not confined to a place or a district, but was like the cloud or the mist that he saw on the hillside as he travelled along. This cloud or mist at times seemed to be moving along beside him. So he called he gave this name to God, El Shaddai, the God of the mist and the rain, the one who accompanies us wherever we go. An early name for God. And this was a remarkable intuition and distinguishes Abraham from the primitive people of his own time, that gods were not localized, but that God was with us everywhere. And he's still influenced by their practices, and those practices so long ago included human sacrifice. Perhaps that's why it was almost natural for him to stretch out his hand to seize the knife with which to offer his son as a sacrifice. An act which we regard with horror, but which was taken for granted perhaps in his day. There still would have been a conflict within him, because by sacrificing his son, he was also sacrificing the dream that his descendants would be as many as the stars of heaven or the sand of the seashore. Scripture regards this dramatic incident as a test for Abraham's faith in God, which he passed nobly, and which has made him a model of the faith that we should have when we're asked to let go something that is most precious to us, so as to rely on God alone. When we are presented with such a knife, such a decision, whether it's the fear of an actual operation that we have to undergo, or whether the knife of separation that comes with the death of a friend or relative who's been taken from us, or the knife of a hurt when a friendship is ended by a quarrel, or the confusion and lack of identity when we've lost a job or been retired. These are all moments when we are asked to sacrifice a precious part of our existence. And we have to learn, as Abraham did, how to respond. In fact, we quite often act as though God were wielding the knife that is the cause of our distress. We fail to recognize that this same El Shaddai, who accompanies us along our way and wants to be the one who transforms or transfigures our sacrifice into something that heals rather than harms us. On the mountain of transfiguration, our understanding of who God is takes another huge leap. Just as Abraham made one leap in understanding the nature of the deity, we're given this next opportunity when the voice from the cloud reveals, "This is my Son, the beloved, listen to him." God is giving his own Son to benefit us all. Christ is the spark that is a spark of eternity let loose in the fields of time. Suddenly time is changed because this spark of eternity has been let loose to enlighten and illumine us. And that spark transfigures and recalibrates our human limited view that things are not as they have been. We have to rethink them in another perspective and to view them and allowing us to glimpse that divine spark in the midst of mortality, in the midst of our time, that we see that divine spark transforming things, and to glimpse the glory lying beneath the surface of the here and now. That's the wonderful revelation that is contained in the gospel today. And we have to recognize that more often than we really want, it isn't God handing us the knife. Life hands us the knife of sacrifice. That knife of sacrifice has been so evident in the last year that we have all endured. The era of pandemic, the era of famine in so many parts of the world, and the oppression by military dictatorships in too many countries. And so there is a situation where the knife of sacrifice that was offered to Abraham is very much offered to us as well, that this has a lot of letting go has to take place. And if we can let go in the way Abraham let go the thought of his son succeeding him, if we let go that and allow our reliance to be on God and not the other securities around us, something imperishable emerges and even grows stronger within us, and it has to do with the unconquerable human spirit, borne aloft by the deep movements and currents from within in each one of us, that surface as the abiding presence that we come to name as the transfiguring power and love of God. And that love of God accompanies us wherever we go.